who say they believe in Jesus, but that's as far as their religion. Because they believed in him, but Jesus said, there's something more. To believe in me is good, but you're going to have to continue in my word. You're going to have to continue to nurture and to develop your faith. You're going to have to continue to listen to the things that I'm teaching, the things that I'm saying, if you want to truly be a follower. You can't just say, I believe in Jesus, and then it ends there. It's got to continue. It's got to go deeper. And if it goes deeper, Jesus says in verse 32, you will know the truth. If you abide in my word, you will know the truth. And the end result is that the truth will make you free. Now that triggered a statement from those present, verse 33. They answered him, we are Abraham's descendants and have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? Now let's think about that response. Does this sound like people who are ready to be baptized? And I know baptism is something that would come later in the teaching of Jesus, beyond the baptism of John, the immerser. So this is why I say belief shows itself in a number of different ways. Not everyone asked that question. Who do you think may have asked that question? Those who were looking. They wanted to believe. They wanted more. But they're going to challenge Jesus before they get there. What did they hear when Jesus said the truth will make you free? What did they hear? What did Jesus mean? We all know what he meant. What did he mean? Spiritual. You'll be free from sin. You'll be saved. What did they hear?
They thought they'd be under a slave or something. People don't realize you're either a slave to Christ or you're a slave to Satan.
Well, look at their response. We are Abraham's descendants and have never yet been enslaved to anyone. How is it that you say you will become free? So they were thinking about physical slavery, but is there anything that you would say back to them when they said that we've never been enslaved? Let's just review their history all the way back to the time of Abraham, and then the development of the nation. The nation, when they really became a nation, was in Egypt. And what were they doing in Egypt? Were they running the show? They were slaves. They come out of Egypt. They go into the land of Canaan. Years pass. They become unfaithful. What happens in the northern kingdom? They're taken into Assyrian what? Captivity. And then sometime later, the southern kingdom of Judah is taken into Babylonian captivity. Who rules after the Babylonians? After the Babylonians? One at a time. Who? Babylonians, Medo-Persians, Greeks, and who now? Romans. Okay. But who would say, what kind of person would say, well, we've never been enslaved? Someone who's got a little pride in their heart. And who is basing their relationship with God on physical lineage. We're descendants of Abraham. You remember Abraham? You know, the one who God made the promises to and who believed in God, and it was reckoned to him as righteousness. I got his blood running in my veins. You know, you see the pride. Jesus answered them in verse 34 and said, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is the slave of sin. At this point, what should they have understood? That the slavery was spiritual slavery, that it wasn't physical slavery. How could Jesus have said, what I'm talking about here is slavery to sin, in such a way that they would have understood it? Maybe he would have said, truly, truly, I say to you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin. He said it as clearly as he could say it. And then he said in verse 35, the slave does not remain in the house forever. The son does remain forever. Let's think about that statement. Let's look at verse 36, because we're going to come back to verse 35. So, that kind of connects it with verse 35, if the Son makes you free, you will be free indeed. So who do you think is the slave in verse 35, and who is the son? Say it again.
They were slaves to sin. Christ is going to break them free from that bondage of sin.
Okay. I heard a female voice back here.
The son was Christ.
Okay. All right. So the son rules the house. He's not going to change. They would have certain privileges as slaves while they were in the house, but the son was the one who had the privileges to be conferred upon the slaves. Jesus came to save the sinner and bring them out of that state of slavery. So slavery would be a temporary state for those who came to believe in and accept Jesus. Verse 37, I know that you are Abraham's descendants, yet you seek to kill me. Now who is he talking to? He's not talking to everybody, is he? He's talking to the religious leaders who were there, who were in that crowd, in the crowd that did include believers. Now he's addressing them because they are the ones who wanted to kill him. Because my word has no place in you. The word of Jesus, the word of God had no place in them because they had a dark heart. They had a heart that was not sensitive to or receptive to the truth. And they had a heart that was filled with jealousy, bitter jealousy and selfish ambition. Verse 38, I speak the things which I have seen with my Father, which could literally be translated in the presence of my Father. Therefore you also do the things which you heard from your father. Now, when Jesus says, I speak the things which I have seen with my Father, is he pushing the envelope with the religious establishment? He's going to blow a hole in it by the time we get to the end of this chapter. But he's really pushing the envelope with them because he's talking about his Father. He's the son of a father. He's a son who, if we believe in him, we will be set free from sin. We've heard him say to certain ones that your sins are forgiven. This is not going in a good direction. And this is why we say again and again that Jesus is in control. He's leading the discussion, and he's bringing his life to the point where he's going to be in direct conflict with those who would crucify. They answered and said to him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said, you do the things which you heard from your father. Jesus said, you're trying to kill me. Does that sound like something Abraham would do? Jesus said to them in verse 39, if you're Abraham's children, do the deeds of Abraham. What is he wanting them to do that would be in sync with the deeds of Abraham? Have faith. Don't resist the plan and the purpose of God. When God tells you to do something, if God tells you to sacrifice your son, the child of promise, then you go do it. That's the spirit that would come to believe that Jesus is the Son of God. He's telling them, you're not Abraham's children. You're physical descendants, but you're not children of faith. But as it is, you are seeking to kill me, a man who has told you the truth, which I heard from God. Now listen, he said, I heard it from God. In verse 38, he said, I speak the things which I have seen in the presence of my Father. God told me these things. I'm the Son. He's my Father. Who is Jesus? He's the Son of God. God is his Father. He's telling them without actually coming out and saying it. He's going to say it later. This Abraham did not do. Latter part of verse 40. Verse 41, you are doing the deeds of your father. He gets back to their father. They said to him, we were not born of fornication. We have one Father, God. God is our Father. Jesus said to them, if God were your Father, you would love me. For I proceeded forth and have come from God. For I have not even come on my own initiative, but he sent me. Why do you not understand what I'm saying? It is because you cannot hear my word. Had nothing to do with the physical sense of hearing. It had to do with what was in their heart, the hardness of their heart. You are of your father, the devil, and you wanted to do the desires of your father. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. Whenever he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own nature, for he is a liar and the father of lies. What did Jesus mean when he said that he was a murderer, that is, the devil? He was a murderer from the beginning. What does he mean by that?
Because of Eve and Adam and Eve, all men must die. And Satan's the one that produced the lie that actually drove them from the garden, and they surely died physically.
Excellent. That's exactly right. Yes, sir. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and just a side note here, I would say, this is why honesty is so important. You know, when we are deceptive, when we lie, when we don't speak the truth, we're of the nature of who? Satan, the devil. And I would say the same with regard to love and not willing or desirous of doing the will of God, because Jesus lied about that and he steered Eve away from obedience. But because I speak the truth, verse 45, you do not believe me. You do not believe me because I speak the truth. Which one of you convicts me of sin? Now think about that question. What is Jesus saying about himself with that question? What have I done wrong? Have you ever said that? What have I have. People accuse me or mad at me, and I'll ask the question, well, what did I do? What have I done wrong? Well, sometimes I didn't do anything wrong. Sometimes it's just somebody in a bad mood. But when I ask the question, I'm not implying that I've never done anything wrong. I'm just wanting to know why you're treating me this way. What have I done wrong? When Jesus asked that question, implicit within the question was the truth that he had never done anything wrong. Search my life was the challenge of Jesus. Who here, Jesus looking to them, who among this number, having known me, can actually accuse me of any wrongdoing? And you think about it, everything they said about Jesus was false. Every accusation was a false accusation. What an amazing statement of one's life that he didn't hold back in asking the question. He didn't have to. This is God in the flesh. You're not going to find anything wrong with God in the flesh. If I speak truth, why do you not believe me? If you can't convict me of anything wrong, if I'm speaking the truth, why don't you believe? He who is of God hears the words of God. For this reason you do not hear them, because you're not of God. So to resist the will of God, to refuse to do the will of God, what that says about that person is they're not of God. So the Jews answered and said to him, do we not say rightly that you are a Samaritan and have a demon? Is this getting personal?
Yeah, but he was denied to go in. He wasn't even allowed to go in.
Well, he did go to Samaria. He met the woman at the well.
He wasn't allowed to go in.
Okay?
He's stepping on their fingers.
And what are they doing? What are they doing? They're just calling him names. You know, this is This is a childish stance on their part. They can't convict him of sin, so let's just call him something bad. Let's call him a Samaritan. You're a half Jew. Now, what could have served as the basis of that accusation? You're a half Jew. Some may have traced it all the way back to that time when Mary was with child before her and Joseph got together. That may be a stretch, but they were just calling him names. And then they said, you have a demon. You have a demon. That's a good one. Somebody's getting on you and you're in this discussion, just say, you got a devil in you. So Jesus answered, I do not have a demon, but I honor my Father, and you dishonor me. But I do not seek my glory. There is one who seeks and judges. And what he is referring to here is that God would seek his glory. God would glorify him in his resurrection from death. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he will never see death. He will never see death. He will never die. What was their understanding? What did Jesus mean? You'd have everlasting life. Did he mean that they wouldn't die physically? No.
I don't think they realized what he was actually saying. I think they were thinking they would never die. Physically.
They didn't want to believe what he said. In fact, they said, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died and the prophets also. And you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste of death. Abraham and the prophets were honored and esteemed in the eyes of the people. Abraham was the father of faith. The prophets spoke the word of God. They died. And you're telling us that you're not going to die, or anyone who would keep your word would never die? Surely you are not greater than our father Abraham, who died. The prophets died too. Whom do you make yourself out to be? And that was really what they wanted, to hear him come right out and tell them who he was. And Jesus answered and said, if I glorify myself, my glory is nothing. It is my Father who glorifies me, of whom you say, he is our God. And yet you have not come to know him. But I know him. And if I say that I do not know him, I'll be a liar like you. But I do know him and keep his word. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. How did Abraham rejoice to see the day of Christ and see it? Okay? And he believed that, didn't he? And if it's a promise from God, and you consider the magnitude of that promise, certainly you would believe it, and you would rejoice in it, you would be glad in it. Other comments?
If Abraham was still alive, and I believe he is, in the spirit world, he saw Jesus being born.
Yeah. And that's the other side of this. I think he saw it through the eye of faith, but knowing that Abraham lives in eternity, he would see it now. He would see it during the time of Christ. So I think there's two different ways of looking at that. And then they said, you're not yet 50 years old, and have you seen Abraham? Jesus said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, and this was the 1-2 punch here. Truly, I say to you, before Abraham was born, I am. I am. Whoever used that expression of themselves? God did. When Moses was to lead the people out of Egyptian bondage, Moses said, when I go to the people, who am I to say sent me? Tell them that I am sent you. So they knew that phrase. So when Jesus said, I am, he directly identified himself with God and as God, but also eternal in nature. How does the phrase, I am, speak of being eternal? Jack? Yeah. Yeah, I am. I mean, who says that? I am. Not I was, I will be. I am. I was, I will be, I am. That's eternity. Two words that really say a lot. Any comments?
Well, these people say they know God, then they ought to know the Son. They say they know Abraham, they know the prophets, they know all this stuff, but they can't make this next step.
Explain that, Joanne. Yeah. I guess there's a lot that can be said about that, but it does sort of boil down to expectation. He wasn't what they expected. He wasn't the earthly king. It wasn't going to be the earthly kingdom.
I assume some of these people are supposed to be godly and religious leaders and all that, but yet their first desire is murder.
Yeah. Well, and there's a whole lot too to be said for this this jealousy and not wanting to be displaced. You know, if you got a man who wants to be the man, he wants to be the guy, he wants to run the show. He doesn't want anybody else to be that man or that guy or that person. His heart, his mind is blinded to the truth. That's why we speak of, well, James said it, where jealousy and selfish ambition exists, there is disorder in every evil thing. You know, that's true at the earthly level, that's true in business organizations, it's true in school and drama, politics, you know, the drama of life. We see that kind of stuff all the time. But here we're seeing it in religion. Can it exist in religion today? Can it exist in the church today? Are there men who want to put themselves above others in the church? Okay.
Get over the fact that they're waiting on somebody to come along and establish an earthly kingdom that will take over Rome and free them so they can rule the world again.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. So how did they respond? Joanne, what were you going to say?
Well, I was just gonna think, earlier when you were talking about them being free and slaves, if they would have told them the story of Onesimus, who was both slave and free at the same time, that would have been hard to understand, right?
Yeah.
But he's a slave, but he's free in God's eyes, so
It's good.
that's tough.
It's good. Good example. Okay? So how did they respond? They picked up stones to throw at him, and Jesus hid himself and went out of the temple. Wasn't his time, but they were ready to kill him.
I can't imagine how frustrating that must be. I mean, after all this long discourse and it's back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And finally they had it. And they pick up stones. And all of a sudden, he's gone.
Yeah.
Somebody had to help hide him for him to get away with the multitude. Because, you know, he slips away several times, they don't know he's gone. So somebody had to help him.
Could he just have disappeared?
He did, wanted to, but he did.
He kind of had that ability, didn't he?
Well, they fulfilled what he said about him earlier. He called him murder.
Yep. Well, let's make things better. When we come back to the Jews, let's make things better by healing a man on the Sabbath.
That'd be exciting.
That will endear me to the Jews, right? That's chapter 9. That's the next event in the life of Jesus. So as he passed by, so this was sometime later, he saw a man blind from birth. Blind from when? Blind from birth. And his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? Where did that thinking come from?
That they said a child born from his parents' sin. That child bears the sins of his parents.
Yeah,
And
okay.
there's
So there was the belief back then that you could be born in sin based upon a misunderstanding of an Old Testament passage. So the belief of we'll call it inherited depravity, would have existed even 2,000 years ago.
But part of their statement doesn't make sense.
And what part would that be,
That
Marcus?
would be part where, did he sin before birth?
Some believe that that's possible. Some believe that this was a reincarnated sinner. I read that. I thought that was kind of weird. You could be reincarnated and therefore be born in sin because you were a sinner in a former life.
Verse 34, just about to say. Verse 34.
Well, just come out and say it. Verse 34.
We were born in sin, we were teaching us.
Yeah. Yeah. So they believed it. They said that of this man. So you can see how that was at least one vein of thought during the time of Christ. And so the disciples of Jesus, and I guess this is kind of another side lesson here, the disciples of Jesus could be influenced by the thinking of the religious world, couldn't it? Can we be influenced by the thinking of the religious world and be influenced to think something that's not true? Can that happen to us? Absolutely. And that's why we have to keep studying. You can't just say that you found the truth and now you're good. Because you can be influenced by religious thinking to believe yourself what isn't true. Well, Jesus clears it up in verse 3. It was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. There is purpose in this man's blindness. And for this reason, he was born blind, so that on this occasion, God would be able to glorify his Son in the performance of this miracle. We must, verse 4, work the works of him who sent me as long as it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. During the time of my ministry, this is something I'm here to do. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. When he had said this, he spat on the ground, he made clay of the spittle, and he applied the clay to his eyes. Some believe that this had medicinal qualities, and this was something that could be done to help heal a blind man. For whatever reason, Jesus did it. And he said to him, go wash in the pool of Siloam, which is translated sent. So he went away and he washed, and he came back seeing. So if you want to be cleansed, if you want to see, you do what Jesus instructs you to do. You know, I kind of see a lesson in salvation here. It's kind of like the Naaman the leper in the Old Testament, who is commanded to go dip in the Jordan River. And he pushed back on that. Well, there's better rivers elsewhere. Well, this is the one you gotta wash in. Don't resist the plan and the purpose of God. Had this man not gone to wash, would he have been cleansed? Would he have been able to see? No. He had to obey Jesus. So he went, he washed, he came back seeing. Therefore, the neighbors and those who previously saw him as a beggar were saying, is not this the one who used to sit and beg? And others were saying, this is he. Still others were saying, nobody is like him. How could he look different?
I would say his countenance changed. We figured
How does a blind man make his way around? How does he look? What is he looking at? I don't mean to belittle the blind. Think about Ray Charles. That's a famous blind man. Everybody remember Ray Charles? Okay. If all, what's that? Yeah. If he suddenly could see, his countenance would be different, wouldn't he? I mean, he would get around different. I mean, in some ways, he would be hard to recognize. So I think that's what's happening here. He kept saying, I am the one. So they were saying to him, how then were your eyes opened? He answered, the man who is called Jesus made clay and anointed my eyes and said to me, go to Siloam and wash. So I went away and washed, and I received sight. And they said to him, where is he? He said, I do not know. Did he have saving faith? Did Jesus want him to have saving faith? What did he confess about Jesus at this point? It's the man called Jesus. I'm not sure that's saving faith. I believe he's going to come to have saving faith, and I think Jesus was using this as an opportunity to bring him to the point of faith. But just to say, well, this is the man called Jesus, doesn't necessarily sound like a confession that Jesus is the Son of God. But he is the one who anointed my eyes, said to me, go to Siloam and wash. So I went away and washed, and I received sight. Where is he? I do not know. So they brought to the Pharisees the man who was formerly blind. Pharisees wanted to conduct an investigation. Now it was a Sabbath on the day when Jesus made the clay and opened his eyes. Do you think this was a double crime? What do I mean when I say double crime? He healed on the Sabbath. He what? He made clay. He made clay. He worked. And again, it wouldn't have been a stretch based on everything we've seen the Pharisees for them to interpret even that as working in violation of the Sabbath. So it was that and the miracle. Then the Pharisees also were asking him again how he received his sight. He said to them, he applied clay to my eyes, and I washed, and I see. Therefore, some of the Pharisees were saying, this man is not from God because he does not keep the Sabbath. We've seen this before. But others were saying, how can a man who is a sinner perform such signs? That's a good question. And there was a division among them. Seen that before. So they said to the blind man again, what do you say about him, since he opened your eyes? He said he's a prophet. See why I say he's kind of coming along in his faith? The Jews then did not believe it of him that he had been blind and had received sight until they called the parents of the very one who had received his sight, and they questioned them, saying, is this your son, who you say was born blind? Then how does he now see? His parents answered them and said, we know that this is our son, and that he was born blind, but how he now sees, we do not know. Or who opened his eyes, we do not know. Ask him. He's of age. He'll speak for himself. His parents said this because they were afraid of the Jews. For the Jews had already agreed that if anyone confessed him to be Christ, he was to be put out of the synagogue. So they're afraid. For this reason, his parents said, he is of age, ask him. So a second time, they called the man who had been blind and said to him, maybe he's going to change his story. Give glory to God. We know that this man is a sinner. He then answered, whether he is a sinner, I do not know. One thing I do know, that though I was blind, now I see. So they said to him, what did he do to you? How did he open your eyes? He answered them, I told you already, and you did not listen. Why do you want to hear it again? You do not want to become his disciples too, do you? This guy's not afraid of the Pharisees, is he? He's got Jesus on his side. You know, you don't stand in fear of those who are falsely charging you when you got Jesus behind you. They reviled him and said, you are his disciple, but we're disciples of Moses. We know that God has spoken to Moses, but as for this man, we do not know where he is from. Jesus had already told them that, hadn't he? The man answered and said to them, well, here is an amazing thing. You can just feel the sarcasm. that you do not know where he is from, and yet he opened my eyes. We know that God does not hear sinners, but if anyone is God-fearing and does his will, he hears him. Do you see how these enemies of Jesus are helping this man? The man who was blind but can now see. You see how they're actually helping him to grow in his faith. That wasn't their objective, but that's what they're doing. Since the beginning of time, it has never been heard that anyone opened the eyes of a person born blind. If this man were not from God, he could do nothing. You know, it's almost like he's talking to them, but he's talking to himself. They answered him, "You were born entirely in sins, and are you teaching us?" So they put him out. It kind of makes you wonder how these religious leaders had anybody's respect based on the things they said. I mean, they had such weak arguments. Jesus heard that they had put him out, so he's been excommunicated. He's been disfellowshipped. And finding him, he said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered, "Who is he, Lord, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have both seen him, and he is the one who is talking with you." Wow, what an impression that must have made. Can you just feel his heart missing a beat? And he said, "Lord, I believe." And he worshiped him. What is worship? It's a response to what God has done for us. Worship, in the truest sense, is a response to what God has done for us. And Jesus said, "For judgment I came into this world so that those who do not see may see." Judgment, that is, I came to expose sin so that those who are spiritually blind may have their eyes opened, and that those who see, or at least think they see, may become blind. Those of the Pharisees who were with him heard these things and said to him, "We are not blind too, are we?" Jesus said to them, "If you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say we see, your sin remains." Explain that statement. If you were blind, you would have no sin. But since you say we see, your sin remains. Explain that to me.
They didn't understand what blindness was in a sense. And they're basically saying, we don't need anything. That means you're blind. You can't see the truth. If you could see the truth and you could see, then you would understand what state you're in.
Good. Good.
The blindness was a lack of faith as well.
Yeah.
Because he says he has, that he's done all the things that he's shown that he's done.
They're going to have to reach a point at which they see themselves as someone who can't see, who can't come to the light in and of themselves unless they're willing to let the light come into their heart. You can't fix your broken soul. Only Jesus can do that. Comments or questions? Are we good?
Would you rather be healed?
Richard? How about-
Would you rather be healed or tossed out of the temple? I was like, I'll take the sight over the.
Yeah, oh yeah. Just give me my sight.
All day long.
Well, you know, you see, sometimes you see these videos of people that were born blind and see for the first time, and just, what, pun intended, what an eye-opening experience that is. I mean, just imagine, you know, he was of age, and he had never seen anything. Okay, Richard.
It seems to me, Christ in his own time, he knows what's going to happen. He knows the time it's going to happen. He knows how it's going to happen. Put stuff in. And then he's stepping out and he's getting closer and closer and closer to crucifixion.
That's exactly right. Well said. Other comments? Brother Thompson.
I think I might say, he was blind, but he wasn't stupid. He could deal with them one-on-one, and the but he saw the truth, and they could see that they couldn't.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, here was a man who had been blind from birth, which definitely limits your ability to learn. And yet he was standing toe to toe with these religious leaders. And he really made them look dumb, didn't he?
Also shows you how they view people with disabilities. No, yeah, no respect, no, and that's why they were stuck outside the temple gate.
I knew an old man once who he was losing his sight and his hearing, and he said I would much rather be blind than deaf, because when you're blind, people will lead you around, but when you're deaf, everybody just thinks you're dumb. Y'all know who that old man is, by the way. He lives right here in Coleman. But all right, Donna.
The contrast is, what they were both looking for. The man who had been healed from his blindness comes out of that experience looking for salvation. The ones that have had their signs and the learning, they're looking for a way through that. Here's the Savior, but they don't want to get that he's the Savior.
Yeah.
And here's the blind man who has, unfortunately, he's had a day in his life, and they don't what he really wants is salvation.
Yeah. Yeah, as you say this, I'm thinking sometimes, and this is true of all of us, sometimes we don't see ourselves for who we really are. And we think we're one thing when we're something else. We want everybody to think we're one thing when we're really not. That's a good comment. Other comments?
So, as long as you have the truth, make the argument, that's really all you gotta do. I mean, especially if you're trying to argue this, just rely on the scripture. It doesn't have to be what I say or what I think. It doesn't matter what I say or what I think. What does the word say?
Yeah.
This man just relies on the truth of what happened. And all they have to have comment on that. That's all they have to do.
Yeah, and when the truth is plainly stated, there's really no point in endless argument. If someone doesn't want to believe it, they're not going to believe it. They're going to have to come to it on their own. All right, I think that's it. We'll